Hi there, Lee here. So if you remember last video, I cut and shaped the neck. I've done a lot of sanding on it. It's looking really good. Hopefully you can see that okay. So I'm really pleased with how this is looking at the moment. So what I've done is I've just made sure my fret lines are in the right place. So I've measured and I've measured again, so I'm happy with that. I've got the lines on the fretboard. So before I start radiusing the fretboard, I think I'm going to cut the frets out first. Now I did, before I've cut, when I cut fret slots, I actually find it easier to do it on a radiused fretboard because obviously you start at the peak and the blade just seems to go in much easier that way. However, I found because I'm doing it manually without a jig, it was easy for me to go off track. So this time I'm going to cut the fret slots while it's still flat and then I'm going to radius it. I'm going to see which method I prefer, to cut the fret slots before or after radius. So this time I'm going to do it before the radius and we'll see how we get on. So let's start that now. I've got the tools I need. So a metal edge, my fret saw. I'm also just going to use a normal saw as well, because what I've actually found is the thickness of this blade is about as deep as the fret slot needs to be, but because it moves, it doesn't go in straight. So I'll use the proper fret saw to go halfway, and then I'll finish it with this one, because I know as soon as that edge goes below the top of the rosewood, that's the depth of the fret. Now I may need to recut them afterwards anyway, because obviously once I've radiused, it may be a little lower, but let's try that and we'll see how we get on. So all I'm doing here is I'm just going to get my straight edge right against the fret line, holding it down and then just drawing my saw softly against it until I get a groove. Excellent. So that's the fret slots cut. They're looking pretty good. So we'll move on to radiusing the fretboard. So let's move on to that now. So all I need to do now to radius, I've got my radius block. I bought a longer one because I find it much easier to keep it nice and straight. So it's a 10-inch radius. All I need to do now is I've clamped this in so it's pretty tight, and I just have to carefully just go back and forth until it's got that nice 10-inch radius on the fretboard. So let's start that. Forgot something. Wear your mask, especially with rosewood, because it's supposed to be bad for you. So since this is a rosewood fretboard, let's get the mask on. Oh, quick tip. There is actually a faster way to radius that I showed in one of my other videos. You can, if you've got a thin radius block, then you can actually put it under the band sander, and then you can sand with the machine instead. But the machine's just a little bit shorter than my neck, and I don't want it to go wrong. So since I want this guitar to be perfect, I'm just going to take the time. It's probably going to take me an hour, but I'm going to do it all by hand. Just because I don't trust myself on the machine, I don't want to ruin it at this stage. So let's get the mask on and crack on with this. So this is coming along nicely now. It's looking really good. I've got a nice radius in there. Hopefully you can see that. So I'm really pleased with how this is turning out. What I have been checking as well is I've got my little radius blocks here. And so I've been using the big radius block. I've got my small radius piece here. So I've been checking that it all looks good all the way along the neck. I've also been checking with a thin straight edge just to make sure. And occasionally, I've just been using a slightly thinner sanding tool just to make sure everything's perfect. So I'm really pleased how this has turned out so far. The next thing I need to do now is just make sure the fret slots are cut deep enough. Obviously, where I've been sanding, I've sanded away, and the slots, some of the slots aren't quite deep enough anymore. So I'll get my saw, I'll go back over each of the slots, and then we can start the fretting. Excellent. So that's the fret slots done. They're looking really good, nice and straight. All I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give it a quick sand again over, and then I'll pull a razor blade through the fret slots just to clear them of any of the wood dust, and then I'll start putting the frets in. So as you can see, I've got my pillar drill out, but it's not for drilling. I will need to do that to drill the machine head holes at some point. I actually use it as a fret press. So I've got my fret press piece in there on my 10-inch radius that I've made the fretboard. So I actually just use this to press the frets in. I've done a couple already just to test it works okay, and it seems to work perfectly. So all I'll do now is I'll just carry on individually cutting a fret and pressing it in with this, and then I'll do the hammering and finishing just to make sure the frets are in and flush to the fretboard. So let's crack on with that and we'll see where we go. just cutting the tangs off as well, just to make it a little bit smoother when I sand down. So all I do is I just cut into the tangs slightly and then snip it off. Once I've pressed the fret in, and as you can see, that seems to have gone in nicely, but there might be some very slight overhang. So I'll need to snip that off. But just before I snip it off, I actually hammer down on the edge to make sure that fret is pushed nicely into the corners, into the edge of the fretboard. So I'll just give it a quick tap on either side to make sure that's down nicely. One more press. And that all looks really good. So let's keep going along and we do these one by one and we get this done. But each one looks pretty good so far. Excellent. So that's it then. I've put all the frets in, as you can see. I'm going to bring this video to an end. So just so you can see there, these frets haven't been leveled or anything, as you've seen. So what I'll do next video is finish the neck off. So I'll put the machine heads in, probably put the nut in, although I may wait until the guitar's finished before I play around with that, just to get the string levels right. I'll also level all the frets and finish the sanding on the neck and complete the neck. So that's for next video. I'll leave it there because this video is getting way too long, and catch me next time when we finish this off.